For this year's building systems project, we were introduced to create a office building with rental offices in the main floor. The site that was proposed for this project was a lot facing two streets, essentially a corner lot. The building itself was a steel structure building with glass and architectural paneling as its cladding material. We designed this building to be 12,444 meters squared in gross floor area and 2,244 meters squared in the ground floor area, with each typical floor being 10% smaller. The overall shape of the building was an elongated hexagonal shape.
I'm going to talk about the core area design. Our core area is located in the center of our floor plans. Initially, our core area contained too much architecture design stuff, which took a lot of space. So we revised it to make it more smaller and delete some unnecessary stuff. We also added more essential core components, and we also decreased the area so we make it more compact, efficient. With the new design, we could have more leasable area around the perimeter to make more money out of it.
So for HVAC, the main things that we had to change in the building was our core spaces. Essentially, we had to make the corridor bigger for our return shafts, and another change that we had to do was rearrange the vertical shaft area. Sorry, not vertical shaft area, the vertical shafts, essentially centralizing them so that they don't overlap with each other and overlap with other elements.
Okay, so when we were looking at how our design changed in order to accommodate building systems for fire safety and fire suppression, we did a couple of changes when we were looking at how our building related to the site. In our initial design, we had the secondary entrance and main entrance opposite to each other on the long sides of the building. And what we found was our access routes were going to be Rathburn Road on the south and Duke of York Boulevard on the east. And both of these access routes were in the required dimensions, 3 to 15 meters of the building, 6 meters wide with a 12-meter radius. But it didn't make sense to have our secondary entrance back here, not on the access route. So we moved our secondary entrance to be on this side so that it faced the access route, and it made it much more efficient and closer in terms of placing the hydrant and the fire trucks and the Siamese standpipe at the front. The second change that we did was in terms of the fire suppression floor plan. Although our core was central, it was a little bit closer to the front, and so this area of the building was more difficult to meet the minimum requirements of the fire hose spray. So when we had fire hose cabinets here, the hose of 30 meters plus the 3-meter spray wouldn't reach some of these suite areas, and so we had to extend more corridor space and fire hose cabinet within that corridor there, which if we had played around with our corridor a bit more, it would have been more efficient that way, and we wouldn't have had to do that. So that was another change that we had to do in terms of fire suppression and fire safety. And then,
yeah, the last minor revisions were the washroom, wet wall, and staircase. So initially we only gave 400 millimeter for the wet wall. Then we increased to 600 millimeter to have more space for the 400 millimeter diagram pipe chase. And we also increased a little bit the staircase width to have more space for the risers, because due to different floor-to-floor height, we add some risers to it. So that's all the changes.
So our takeaways from this assignment were that we thought that the central core worked really well in terms of allowing people access to different parts of the building, being able to create the core components and organize them efficiently and compactly. Having the stairs at opposites of that core made a lot of sense so that people had access to different parts of the building. And it also allowed more leasable perimeter area so that the perimeter offices and suites could have a lot of light being along the perimeter. So I think we're happy with that general concept of our building. Other things that we learned were that when we're doing these building systems, it really makes it a lot easier having a basic square building. And we didn't think so much in terms of design and doing some different aesthetic things, but even in our design of just having the chamfered edges and creating a hexagon, we found just that small adjustment to the square made it a lot more difficult laying out the HVAC diffusers and branches and the sprinkler system. So it's just something to keep in mind in our studio and design classes, how the building core is affected and the building systems are significantly affected when you're doing all these different shapes in your design. The other thing was that in order to improve our design, and I think there were a couple things that we thought might look better. One of these things was, and part of this was dictated by this shape of site, but maybe having our entrances on the narrower portions of the building versus these long portions would have helped us a little bit in making our core more central and having less corridor space and less long travel in the lobby up here. And then also having we had our parking over in this area, but it's sort of awkward parking here and then having to walk all the way to the front to get into the building. So having either a third entrance here, or if potentially we could have put parking back here, might have been a better solution. We still had to keep our solar panels facing south though. Just some different things to consider in the future to make our core system more compact so that you can have more leasable area and less wasted space. And that's it. Thank you for watching our presentation.